In this video, we're going to take a look at another Computer Science 9618 Paper 4 question focusing on object-oriented programming. So let's go ahead and take a look. So this was question 3 from an exam. I've never seen object-oriented programming as one of the first questions. Usually shows up towards the end of the exam. They're worth a lot of points, and it's something that all of us should be able to get. So let's go ahead and preview this question. A computer game requires users to travel around a world to find an open treasure chest. Each treasure chest has a mathematics question inside. The user enters the answer. The number of points awarded depends on the number of attempts before the user gives the correct answer. The program will be created using object-oriented programming. The following class diagram describes the class treasure chest, so they give us all the information we need. We have the properties or the attributes right here for each object, question, answer, points, and then we have some methods. We have a constructor, which takes the question, answer, and points as parameters and creates an instance of an object. Constructors will always create an instance of an object. What we need to focus here is that it takes the question, answer, and points as parameters. That will be key later on because I guarantee you we're going to have to make that constructor. Get question, this is a get method. So this is going to be a function or a non-void method if you're writing it in Java. Check answer. It takes a user's answer as a parameter. We need to know that. Returns true if it's correct, otherwise returns false. So we have a Boolean return type there. And because it's returning, we also know that is going to be a function, or again, another non-void method. And then get points, that is going to be a get method. We're going to be returning something, and right here returns the number of points awarded. So let's go ahead and dive into this question and start answering all of these. Oh, one more thing, and this is why I put it in here so I wouldn't forget. Right here, when you start your test, you'll have some information. So a class declaration can be used to declare a record. A list is an alternative to an array. And then right here, the last thing they give us, a source file is used to answer question 3. The file is called treasurechestdata.txt. We will need to know that in order to do this question. So let's go ahead and take a look at part A. It says create a new program. Write program code to declare the class treasure chest. Do not write any other methods. The attributes are private. And then if you're using Python, use comments to show your variables. So it says all we need to do is declare the class treasure chest. It tells us the attributes are private, which is always going to be the case. And here they are right here. Question, answer, points. It also gives us the data type. This is 5 easy points. So let's switch over and program that now. So doing part A, what we want to do is we want to declare the class, so public class, and that's going to be treasure chest. And we have our in class, that's going to give us a point. Now, when we have these 3 attributes, the question, which is a string, the answer, which is an integer, and points, which is an integer, you're going to be using the keyword private. So we're going to do question, that is going to be a string. We're going to do private again. For answer, that is going to be an integer, and the last one is points, and that is going to be an integer as well. And just like that, we have declared the class with the attributes. They're all private, and we just picked up 5 points. Let's take a look at the next part of the question. All right, part B, the text file treasurechestdata.txt stores the data for 5 questions in the order of question, answer, points. For example, the first 3 lines of the file are for the first question. 2 times 2 is the question, 4 is the answer, 10 points. Now, just to point out here, because we do not have access to this file, I have created treasurechestdata.txt. I've created that file, and I've come up with some questions of my own. Now, the 2 times 2 question, I put that in there as the first question, but all I did was I have 15 lines, 3 lines for each question, because we have the question, we have the answer, and the points. So you can create a notepad file too, and because later on we're going to have to show some input and output. But let's take a look at this question. So write program code for the procedure readData. Okay, so we have readData, and it doesn't look like it accepts any parameters, and here's what it wants us to do. It wants us to read each question, answer, and points from the text file. We can do that. That's not a problem. That goes back to AS level stuff, so we're able to handle that. Create an object of type treasure chest for each question. We can definitely do that. So we need to write the constructor. Declare an array named array treasure of type treasure chest. Easy. We're going to create 5 objects here because there's 5 questions. Append each object to the array, so that means update for object number 2. Make sure that is being added to the array. That is easy. That will be done actually within this. And then use exception handling to output an appropriate message if the file is not found, which goes back to AS as well. So a lot of neat stuff going on here. Don't feel overwhelmed by like, oh my God, this is 8 points, I'm not able to do it. Of course you are. You just got to break it down. So let's switch over and let's break down each part of this question and get the full 8 points. So we first need to create that constructor, and that's so we can test our code later on. So I'm going to do public sub new. That is the constructor in VB. If you're in Java, it is the name of the class. So your constructor would be public treasure chest because that is the name of the class. Now, it did say it takes 3 parameters. It takes the question as a parameter. It takes the answer as a parameter. And then it also took points as parameter. So those are integers. And all I need to do is assign them. So question is going to be equal to the value of Q that was passed as a parameter. Same thing for answer. That's going to be A. And then points is going to be P. Now that we have that, we can get back to the question because it says that it's going to instantiate an object. We don't want to have a bunch of red lines. So that's why we created the constructor. So let me pull that question. Okay, the text file treasure chest stores data for 5 questions. All right, we read that. Write program code readData. Okay, so we're going to have sub. We're going to have readData. I'm going to do it like they did. readData. And that's going to be in sub. So all the code that we're about to write is going to go outside the class inside the readData sub because we're going to end up calling it from sub main when we run this later on. So let's go ahead and take a look at all the code that we need to type here. Because we're working with a file, let's go ahead and read each question, answer, and points from the text file. What we're going to need is we're going to need a stream reader. So that's good. We'll call that file reader. And we're going to do that as a new system.io.stream reader. And then we need the name of our file. And our file is treasure chest. And I want to put that in quotes, of course, is treasure chest data.txt. So that will go ahead and that will open the file. So we have that. And we need to read each question from the file. So if I'm going to read each question, I need a question as a string, I need the answer as an integer, and I need the points as an integer. I'm going to need all 3 of those because I need to store them somewhere locally so I can pass that to the constructor. Now let's go ahead and let's declare an array of treasure chests because there's no point in creating an object if we don't have an array of treasure chests. So I'm going to call mine treasure chests. And then I'm going to put a 5 here, and that is going to be of treasure chest. Now, with an array of objects, you cannot use the keyword new. If you use the keyword new, it cannot do that. It can't create 5 objects at one time. So anytime you have an array, you're going to need to use a loop or have something that increments. We're going to omit object 0. So we're going to use index 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you do not want to admit object 0, that's fine. You're just going to put, or you're just going to use 4 as your max index. I'm going to be using 5 for mine. So we have the array. What we need to do now is we need to create an object type. So what we need to do is we need to pull it from the file. So there's a lot going on here. You know what? I'm going to need something else too. I'm going to need the question index as integer, and that is to keep track of where we are here, and I'm going to set that equal to 1 because that needs to be 1 the first time this thing runs because I'm emitting index 0. If I was not emitting index 0, I would start this not at 1 but as 0. Okay, I think we're ready to go here. I'm checking it over. I got everything I need. All right, so we're going to run this preconditional loop. So we're looking where file reader dot peak, as long as it's not equal to -1, as long as there's something in the file, this is going to run. So if you created your text file for test data and to run your program, make sure you do not have a blank line at the very end. There should be no blank lines. Your cursor should end on the last, on line 15 if you're following the same format. So all we got to do now is we need to load the question, and that is going to be file reader dot read line, because each one is on a separate line. My answer is going to read the next, it's going to be on the next line. So I just do read line again, and then my points, that is on the final line. And now that I have this, what we can do is we can go ahead and we can start instantiating the object. So I'm going to do treasure chest. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my question index. So I need to fill slot 1. Now there are 5 questions that are inside the our treasure chest data file. So this is going to run 5 times. And what I want, this is a new treasure chest. Now, if I hit enter here, it's going to give me a red line. And we need to pass those parameters. Now, if we did not have our constructor, we would not get a red line. As soon as we put the parameters in, we would. We don't want to have red lines when we're taking our exam. We don't need to add any unnecessary stress that we already have. So that's going to be, we're going to pass question, which will be accepted as Q. We're going to pass our answer, which is accepted as A, and then our points, which will be accepted as a P. And now you'll see that that red line is gone. What I need to do now is I need to go ahead and increment question index. And I'm going to do that by plus equals 1 or question index equals question index plus 1, whatever you're more comfortable with. And I think that will be the end of our loop. We'll be able to check this here in a minute and see. So put that 1 back there. Okay, looking, pin the object to the array. We did that. After we come out of the loop, we definitely need to close the file. Don't want to leave it open because then all the contents will disappear. And I think that's everything. Oh, use exception handling. Okay, we got to do that. So after we create our array of treasure chests, we're going to try this right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to try all this code. And what we need to do is, if this does not work, I want to try this code right here. If it doesn't work, then we need to catch the exception. And what I need to do now is I need to tell the computer, okay, if there is an exception thrown, what do I want to do? So I'm going to output a message that says file is not found. And then in try, make sure everything's there. Yep. So that has everything we need here. We have our file reader, so we can read from treasure chest data. We have the question, which we're going to store the question from the data file inside that variable. Same thing with answer and points. I have question index, which helps control where I'm at in this array. Then I want to try this code right here. If it doesn't work, then it'll say file not found, or whatever message I want it to say. And then we're opening, as long as it's not null, meaning as long as there's something there, we're going to follow the same format that it gave us. Question is first, followed by answer, followed by points. We're going to store all those. We're going to instantiate the object and append it to the array starting at 1. We call our constructor. We pass question, answer, and points, which we stored from the file. So that will get us all 8 points. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next part of the question. There's a lot of stuff going on in part B. Let's take a look at part C. 1-point question here. The main program repeats each question until the user inputs the correct answer. The number of points awarded depends on the number of attempts before the user gives the correct answer. The class treasure chest has a method getQuestion that returns the question. Write the method getQuestion. Okay, when you look at questions like this, don't start thinking about all of C, because there's part 1, there's going to be multiple parts that allow you to build on it each time. So don't get overwhelmed by saying, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Break it down into each part, and all we're going to do right now is do what they ask us to do, which is simply write the method getQuestion. Let's go ahead and let's program that now. So for this, it's just a standard get method. So we're going to do public function, and we do getQuestion because that is the name that they gave us. It doesn't accept any parameters. Get methods usually do not, and all we're going to do is we're going to return the question. And just like that, we picked up one of the easy points. Let's take a look at part 2 of the next question. The class treasure chest has a method checkAnswer that takes the user's answer as a parameter. So that's important. So we're going to need to ask the user for their answer later on. It's going to take the answer as a parameter. It returns true if the answer is correct, false. Otherwise, write the method checkAnswer. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. We're going to look. So we have the object question. So we're going to be comparing the user's answer with the property or attribute answer to see if they're the same. If they're the same, we're going to return true. If it's not the same, we're going to return false. So let's go ahead and let's code that out now. Okay, let's go ahead and write that method. It is a function because it's returning a Boolean value, and it is checkAnswer. That is the name that they want us to use. And we're going to accept the user's answer. So I'll say user answer. That's going to be an integer because the answer to the questions are integers, and it's going to return a Boolean value. So all we need to do is check to see if the user answer matches the actual answer. If it does, we return true. So if user answer equals answer, then we return true, else we return false. And just like that, we have picked up the points for that question. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next part. The class treasure chest has a method getPoints that takes the number of attempts as a parameter. If the number of attempts is 1, it returns the value of points. If the number of attempts is 2, it returns the integer value of points divided by 2. So we have div2. So what that's referring to is integer division. If the number of attempts is 3, or if it's 4, it returns the integer value of points divided by 4, div4. If the number of attempts is not 1, 2, or 3, or 4, it's going to return 0. So that's going to be an else statement. This is really just a bunch of if statements here. And then it gives us an example. For example, a question is worth 100 points, and the user took 2 attempts to give the correct answer. The user is awarded 50 points. Write the method getPoints. All right, let's swing over, and let's write some if statements to simply get those 5 easy points. So let's build this function getPoints. So we're going to do public function. That's going to be getPoints, and it accepts the number of attempts. So I'll say, we do the byval num attempts. That's going to be an integer, and it's going to return an integer because it's returning the number of points. So if the number of attempts is 1, so we'll say if num attempts, if that equals 1, all we're going to do is we're going to return points. That's all we're going to do. Now, there's another option, else if, and that is num attempts. That could equal 2. And if it equals 2, then what we need to do is take the points. So we're going to return points integer division divided by 2. So that's why we have that forward slash or backward slash there. And then there is another option, and that's a num attempts equals 3, or you cannot do this. You cannot do 3 or 4. You have to do num attempts again equal 4. Then what we do is we divide by 4. So that's going to be returning the points. That's going to be divided by 4. And it says if the number of attempts is not 1, 2, 3, or 4, then we return 0. So we simply return 0 points. And just like that, we have picked up all 5 points for that part that they wanted us to do. Let's go ahead and move on to the last part so we can write program code for the main program. Write program code for the main program to do the following. Call procedure readData. We've already written the readData, so all we got to do now is call it. Just so you know, if you don't write anything for readData, let's say that was part B, I believe. If you're like, I just don't even know where to begin, I can't do it. When you get to this part that says call procedure readData, call it anyway, because you'll get a point for that. Ask the user to enter a question number between 1 and 5. Output the question that matches the question number entered by the user. Okay, we can do that. Check if the answer input by the user is correct using the method checkAnswer, which we just wrote. Repeat the question until the user inputs the correct answer. Okay, so with that, that brings us to the next bullet point. Count how many times the user attempted the question. So we need to keep track of that. Use the method getPoints to return the number of points awarded. Output the number of points the user is awarded. So we're just writing code to do that, and then in part 5 we'll have to actually output it. So let's go ahead and let's get this code written. All right, so we call readData. That'll get us a point, even if you don't have anything in readData. We have choice as integer, answer as integer. Choice because they're going to be picking a treasure chest number between 1 and 5, which is going to generate the question. Answer as integer, result as Boolean, attempts as integer. We enter a treasure chest number between 1 and 5. Choice is equal console.readLine, result is false, the attempts are equal to 0. This should happen every time they want to do a new question or the program is run. So what we're going to do is, you know what, we need to check and make sure that it's correct. So right here, we need to make sure, let's do this, if choice, we need to make sure it's going to be between 1 and 5. So if choice is greater than or equal to 1 and choice is also less than or equal to 5, then this loop will run. We'll put our indif down here. So this should keep running until they get the question correct, and because we want to get those points. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to output the question. So we're going to do console.WriteLine, and this is why we had the array of treasure chests. So we're going to do treasure chest. You know what? Cambridge made a critical mistake in their choice here. Yep, you're not going to be able to use this line of code, dim treasure chest 5 is treasure chest. That's going to make it local. We're going to have to make it global. Sometimes that's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to see something like that happen. And when it does, you know, they tried the best they can. But if we leave it local, it's not going to work. We're not going to be able to access it because it's a local variable. By making it global, and all I did was put it right here above the class, we'll be able to use it. So we need to get the question. Okay, so that's going to output the question because we're getting the question method here. So we're simply going to do console.WriteLine. Let's see here, does not produce a value. Okay, let's do this then. So that's fine. We'll see if we can store it in a question. So dim question as string. And then what we'll do here is we'll say question equals. And what we'll do is we'll do treasure chest choice, because they're going to enter a choice here. Choice dot get question. There we go. So that will be able to output the question. It won't do a simple console.WriteLine. That's fine. We'll just put it inside of a variable. So we'll do console.WriteLine. And then we'll output the question. We'll simply do that. And then what we want to do is we want to get their answer because it's going to display the choice. The next thing we want is the answer that they're going to type in. So we get the answer. Then what we want to do is we want to find out what is the result. And we do that by calling our checkAnswer method. So we're going to do treasure chest. We need the choice that they made dot get, or checkAnswer. It was checkAnswer. So there it is, checkAnswer. And we want to pass their answer up because we did have it accept a parameter. And then what we do is we increment attempts by 1. We have it set to 0. And that will keep looping until the result is true. Now, once the result is true, we need to give them their points. So what we're going to do is, let's see here. I'm going to need points because if it won't do question, it ain't going to do points. So we'll do dim points as an integer. And then what we'll do is we'll get the points and we'll output them. So we're going to do points equals, and then what we need to do is we're going to do treasure chest because we want to use the choice that they made. And then what we're going to do is we're going to call the get points method. And we need to pass the number of attempts that were made, which will give us the points. Then we do console.writeLine, and we're going to output the, and you want to spell writeLine correctly. And we want to output points are, and then points. Okay, so that will give us everything that we need. We can go ahead and take a look at the last part of the question, and then we'll test it and we'll see if it works. Okay, we've made it to the end. Simply test the program. Take a screenshot showing the inputs and outputs for each of the following two tests. In the first test, select question 1, answer it correctly the first time. In the second test, select question 5, answer it correctly the second time. So we're gonna run our program twice. So we're gonna switch over. We're gonna run our program and we're gonna run each of those tests. We would take screenshots of them using the snipping tool and paste that into the evidence document. But it's now time to test our program. So let's run it and let's see if it works. All right, a lot going on in this question. Let's go ahead and let's run it. So in the first test they want us to do, they want us to select question 1. That should come out to 2 times 2, and it does. And it says answer it correctly the first time. That's 4, gives us 10 points. All right, perfect. That's what we had in the notepad file. Then it says select question 5. That comes out to 5 times 5. Perfect, which is 25. It says answer it right the second time, or correctly the second time. All right, I'll put in 1. It displays it again, perfect, 25 points. I set it equal to 15 points. Remember, we're using a sample. We don't have the actual data file, so we're using a sample. We recreated it. I set this equal to 15 points, which means using integer division, dividing by 2, it should come out to 7, and it does. So it is working correctly. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to help the channel grow, and we'll see you guys in the next video.